Hello, my name is Eva and I run the account Notation is Great on Twitter. So today we're going to talk about Italian lute tablature. So first of all, what is a tablature? How are tablatures different from staff notation? Well, typically staff notation tells you which note to sing or which note to play, but it doesn't tell you how to produce it. So it's up to you to know the technique of your instrument so that you can produce a G or an A or whatever note it is. Instead, tablatures tend to give you some more instructions. So how do you actually produce this note on this instrument? So from that point of view, there are perhaps more like sets of instructions, diagrams, not as abstract as staff notation. And there are tablatures for a range of different instruments. So the first tablatures appeared around the 14th century for organ. We also have tablatures for viols, for violins. Most importantly, perhaps, we have tablatures for a number of plucked string instruments. So the lute, the guitar, the cithern, the vihuela, etc. So in the Renaissance, the lute was a very popular instrument. So there were many professional and amateur players throughout Europe. It was a very popular instrument. And so lute tablatures got very popular. We have many examples of those in Renaissance music. And there were three main systems to notate lute music in tablatures. So the Italian, the French, and the German, even though at least a couple of those expanded beyond the borders of the country they were born in. So today I'll be talking about Italian or Italian type tablatures, but I'll be making other videos on French and German lute tablatures. So this handsome guy that you can see here is Vincenzo Capua, who was a lutenist who lived in the Italian town of Brescia between the late 15th and the 16th century. So Vincenzo Capua compiled a book of lute music, including his own compositions as well as arrangements from other composers, which is known as the Capitola lute book. A page from Capitola's songbook, which as you can see is very beautifully decorated. And you can see as well that it's divided into what looks like staffs, but if you look a bit closely, you'll discover that the staffs have 6 lines as opposed to 5. And they are not really staffs, they are more a representation of the 6 courses of a Renaissance lute. So this is the tuning that would have been used by Capitola's contemporaries. So each of these lines represents one string of the lute. And what you need to know is that the lowest line is actually the highest course of the lute. So in a way, the order is inverted with respect to our normal staff. Okay? So if we look a bit more closely, so as you can see to the left, I've written down the tunings of each of the strings so that we have a bit of help. So as you can see, we have different numbers on each of the lines. So let's look at that first. Basically, the numbers tell you how many frets you have to touch, okay? And bearing in mind that one fret is one semitone, okay? So for example, if we look at the first note, we have a 0 on the 3rd line from the top, which is an F. So this means that the string has to be played as an open string. So we have an F there. And at the same time, we have fret number 3 on the string D4. So this is 3 semitones, so it's D, E flat is 1 semitone, E natural is 2 semitones, and F is 3 semitones. So we have a low and a high F being played at the same time. And next we move on to just the string of D4, 1 fret, so that would be 1 semitone, E flat, and then the same string played as an open string. And you can see that there's a small dot below that 0, and you can see there are other dots everywhere on the tablature. So this means that this note needs to be played with the index finger. So what about note values? Well, if you look at the top of the line, you'll see that the note values are there. So we have stems and flags and not heads, but that's how note values are indicated in Italian lute tablatures. So if we start from the beginning, we have one quaver, two semiquavers, and a bar line, then two quavers and a bar line. Well, so this means that the time signature that we are in has two quavers per bar, so that would be 2/8, which is not a time signature we use a lot, but that's what it is, so 2/8. And then if you look at the third bar, you'll see that there's a semiquaver, but then there's nothing else until the next bar. So in Italian lute tablature, we find that sometimes, actually we find it quite a lot, that if the note value doesn't change, then they don't need to write it every time. So you know that that first note in bar 3 is a semiquaver, so the rest of the notes are semiquavers until you are told otherwise. So with this you can start making your own transcriptions of Capitola's lute book, and I've transcribed here the first 4 bars in case you want to have a look. So Italian style tablatures were used outside Italy as well during the Renaissance, and one of the places they were used in was Spain. So in Spain there was another very popular plucked string instrument, the vihuela, which you can see here. And here you can see an example of a vihuela tablature, which is Miguel Fuenllana's Orfénica Lira, which was published in 1553. So the vihuela had the same tuning as the lute. So basically you can already start looking at this piece as well. It follows exactly the same principles. So here you have my transcription of the first few bars, and as you can see, I've introduced a 2-voice system here because obviously, so this is a fantasia, so many of these fantasias had a polyphonic imitative texture, so I'm trying to reflect that in my transcription, even though in the original it's not obviously notated as such. So this is all you need to start working on your Italian lute tablatures. So I'll make 2 more videos, one on French, one on German lute tablature. If you have learned something from this video, I would like to ask you to please consider making a donation to one or more of the COVID-19 funds that have been set up for musicians around the world, so you have a couple of examples here. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Goodbye.